Tirisfal Glades, also known as Tirisfal Glade or simply as Tirisfal, is an eerie region found on the northern coast of Lordaeron. It was named after the Titan keeper Tyr, as Tirisfal means Tyr's Fall in the Varkroll tongue. Once it was considered a home to the humans of the Alliance of Lordaeron, but in time, after the coming of the Scourge, Tirisfal Glades has become the home of the Forsaken, and of their enemies as well, the Scarlet Crusade, who has several outposts here, including the seat of their religious faith, the Scarlet Monastery. Of course, the minions of the Scourge are still ever present, because it seems you can't really get rid of the Scourge as an enemy. So let's take a look at its history with the rise of humanity. When Loken, the Titanic Watcher left in charge of Ulduar, felt corruption, Tyr and his allies stole the Disc of Norgannon to investigate the extent of Loken's betrayal. Discovering the theft, Loken sent horrific monsters after Tyr's group, but Tyr sacrificed his life to fight the creatures while his comrades escaped with the Disc. The Catraxi general Zakaj and Kitix engaged in combat with Tyr, arcane and shadow magic ripping through the glade. The struggle lasted for 6 days. Ultimately, to protect his friends, Tyr unleashed all of his power, erupting in a crater. Tyr and Zakash were dead, while the wounded Kitix fled to the west. In honor of her fallen comrade, Ironia named the glade surrounding the crater as Tyr's Fall, which in the Varkroll tongue translates to Tirisfal. She and her followers buried Tyr and his foe where they lay, and they placed Tyr's massive silver hand atop his final resting place, as a memorial to his valiant sacrifice. In the end, Tyr's hammer became lost with him somewhere beneath the land now named in his honor. The peaceful Varkroll that were accompanying the keepers wanted to further honor Tyr and decided to settle near the battlefield and protect the tomb of Tyr. Ironia and Arcadius honored the Varkroll's wishes to settle in Tirisfal. Among the Varkroll that remained in Tirisfal was Ygrimme the Truthseeker, but he would later leave the place. Over time, the area became a place of legend for the Varkroll people in northern Kalandor. As a result of the curse of the flesh, the Dragonflayer Varkroll began giving birth to deformed children, giving rise to fear. King Imiron intended to unite all Varkroll clans and ordered the malformed infants killed. Some Dragonflayer Varkroll couldn't do that and decided to find the legendary land of Tirisfal and give the children to the Varkroll living there. In the ages that followed, the children and their offspring continued transforming into beings called humans. As such, humanity first emerged in Tirisfal Glades. The Varkroll had formed Tyr's Guard after that. Knowing they would not live forever, they allowed the humans to join the Order. Tirisfal Glades were the landing place of the Highborn, later known as the High Elves, led by Dathremar Sunstrider after the Night Elves exiled them from Kalandor. Forging inland, the High Elves founded a settlement within the tranquil Tirisfal Glades, co-living with the tribes of primitive humans who told them legends about Tyr. Among the known elves that were born in Tirisfal is Lorash Sunbeam, a man with a tragic fate in the Fourth War. After a few years, many of them began to go mad due to shadowy powers. It was theorized that something evil slept beneath that particular part of the world, but the rumors were never proven to be true. The Highborn argued whether they should expel the humans from the land, or even conquer them. Dathremar did not agree with this because he sensed dark magic, and to avoid further violence, the Highborn packed up their encampment and moved northwards towards another land rich with ley energies, Quel'Thalas. Over thousands of years, the Tirisfal Varkroll died out, but humanity would flourish in the eastern kingdoms. Warlord Thoradin said to unite the human tribes, including that of Tirisfal's Glades, which was the only human tribe powerful enough to end King Thoradin's dream of unity. This tribe was led by the native warrior Lordaeron. While Thoradin won the Alterachi by show of strength, the Tirisfal humans would not submit to show of force alone like the Alterachi. To win their loyalty, Thoradin needed to appeal to their religious beliefs. Thus, Thoradin and his personal guards made a pilgrimage to the region's shrines and sacred groves. At each site, the king performed rituals as was the custom of Lordaeron and his kin. Thoradin even wore a pendant of the silver hand, an image held sacred by Tirisfal's humans. At the end of the pilgrimage, Thoradin met with Lordaeron. The king pledged that if the tribe joined him, he would adopt their mystic ways and spread them among the Arathi. To seal his promise, Thoradin ran his palm along Stormkar's edge and mixed his blood with the earth of Tirisfal. And so it was, Lordaeron and his people bent the knee to King Thoradin, with Tirisfal's leader becoming Thoradin's general. With the human tribes now united, the kingdom of Arathor arose. During the Troll Wars, Tirisfal glades were considered a territory of the Amani tribe. Stupidly, on the Amani's part, when the Troll Wars ended, Thoradin abdicated and spent some time in Tirisfal, studying its ruins and becoming obsessed with humanity's history as well as that of the Vrykul. Using the elven enchantments of Stormkar, he located Tyr's tomb. Thoradin led a retinue of guards and sorcerers there and encountered Tyr's guard. Thoradin's group forced themselves past them and entered the depths of the darkness to which Thoradin heroically succumbed. Unaware of the darkness resting beneath the earth, Thoradin told his magi to break the tomb's magical wards. Inside, they discovered Tyr's body, but also Zakash, who had inadvertently been resurrected when the sorcerers broke the seals. The massive horse summoned minions from below the earth and tore through Thoradin's followers. But the king did not flee or cower. He knew that Cathrax had to be stopped before it fully awakened, and his comrade's death gave him enough time to bury Stormkar in Zakash's brain even as the Corruptor's claw crushed the life from him. The sword's elven enchantments forced the Cathrax into a deeper slumber and kept it from regenerating. However, Thoradin's wounds were mortal and he died shortly after. For centuries thereafter, the former king's ghost lingered near the tomb, unable to find peace. By the year minus 2700, the area had the most coveted and fertile lands. The Arathi established a stronghold to protect their farmsteads from gnolls, kobolds, and other dangerous creatures. Many former soldiers settled in this region, which they later renamed Lordaeron in honor of their late general, Lordaeron. Tirisfal would also become the seat of the Council of Tirisfal, also known as the Order of Tirisfal or Tirisfallen. This council was a secret council of humans, gnomes, and high elven mages charged with the selection and disposition of the Guardian of Tirisfal. It is described as an order of sorcerers. The order was formed by the most powerful of the high elves in order to prevent and safeguard Azeroth from the demons, something that their highborn ancestors couldn't do. They derived their name from their meeting place in the Tirisfal Glades. Specifically, they met in Venomweb Vale. They also used the Hall of the Guardian as a base, but that is of less importance. 2,600 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, fishermen reported a demon stalking the shore of Brightwater Lake. In fact, the Dreadlord Katranatir corrupted the land around the lake, causing deaths, diseases, insects, and droughts of well waters. There were Adir's people to rule and protect, and she asked her lover Alodi to come home with her. As a member of the council, Alodi refused to go with her lover, but instead the half-elf and Meryl Winterstorm devised a plan with his colleagues to defeat the Dreadlord. The council members were to give him his powers, and as a guardian, he rode a phoenix from the Venomweb Vale to the lake where Adir's keep was located. Noticing the Dreadlord on an island in the lake, Alodi defeated the demon and banished him back to the Twisting Nether through a rift. Adir understood now Alodi's true calling. Looking from her keep's window, she witnessed the lake's restoration. Now we move on to a tragic event, the fracturing of Arathor. By the year 1200 before the Dark Portal, the kingdom of Arathor began to split apart. As Strom's power continued to wane due to the lack of nearby natural resources, the nobles of the capital decided to depart to the fertile valleys and pastures of the north. In Tirisfal, they founded a city-state and named it after the surrounding region, Lordaeron. The nobles used their wealth to buy up large plots of land, some of which had been developed by earlier settlers. These areas included the Agamand Mills and the farmsteads owned by Balnir and Soledin families. Over 800 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, Magna Scavil taught several members of the council, including the young Aegwin, in the Glade. During the Second War, the horde led by Ogrim Doomhammer crossed the Alterac Mountains into the Glades and besieged Lordaeron's capital city. However, due to the betrayals within the horde and the arrival of the Alliance of Lordaeron, led by Thoradin from behind, the isolated horde army was certain to lose. So War Chief Ogrim sounded for retreat to Khaz-Modan, with the Alliance racing after them. By the time of the Third War, the Agamand family living in the Agamand Miles was the most prosperous family in Tirisfal Glades. Archbishop of the Church of the Holy Light Alonsus Fowl died prior to the Third War and was buried at what is now known as Fallow's Rest. And now we look at what I consider to be the most tragic time for Tirisfal Glades, and that is the Third War and its aftermath. Under the rule of King Taranis, Tirisfal became a land of peaceful farms and small towns, its people living happily for generations. Unfortunately, it was one of the first places to fall to Arthas Menethil's armies after he ransacked Lordaeron, and his people were killed and risen as undead slaves to the Lich King. Tirisfal suffered a huge number of deaths when the plague of undead swept through the region, and mass graves were created to hold the bodies. As Lordaeron fell, Arthas arrived to ravage Balanir farmstead and raised his former horse, Invincible, as a skeletal steed. In a way to defy the light or defile it, the Scourge also raised Archbishop Fowl from his grave. The Agamand Miles were taken by the undead as well, and so were the most of the settlements in the area. During the scourging of Lordaeron, Thomas Thompson was sent by the superior Knights of the Silver Hand to spend time with his family at Thompson Farm, located southwest of the Agamand Miles in Tirisfal Glades. As he was returning home, he encountered pockets of Scourge as the capital city has fallen. Days later, a courier arrived at the farm and delivered a message about the death of Lord Uther. Ultimately, the farm was abandoned as Thomas sent his wife and children with Kultiran ships while he joined the remaining members of the Paladin Order. Like the other farms, the Thomas farm was growing pumpkins at a time. If you're wondering why this information about Thomas Thompson is important, that's because Thomas is the Headless Horseman. But his story will come at a later date. Just after the Third War ended, the Lich King began losing power thanks to the spell of Illidan's Stormrage. And alongside the Lich King losing power, Arthas Menethil also lost his power. After the battle for Mount Hyjal, the Death Knight returned home and scoured the surrounding of the capital city of any human citizens he could find. They were trying to leave the area to get to Dalaran, but Arthas, Kel'Thuzad, and Sylvanas Windrunner defended the passes and killed the fleeing refugees and their Silver Hand protectors. Upon the successful cleansing, Arthas was recalled to Northrend to aid the Lich King. However, the weakened Death Knight was betrayed and the Dreadlord insurgents attempted to kill him. Arthas then fled the ruins of the capital city and, accompanied by Sylvanas' banshees, trekked throughout the glades. Arriving to a field near the Balanir farmstead, the banshee attacked Arthas' last followers, and Sylvanas shot an arrow at the Death Knight, poisoning him. Kel'Thuzad and his skeletons, found soon after, defeated the banshees and forced Sylvanas to retreat. With that, the Lich and the Death Knight continued to a landing site from which Arthas left Lordaeron. Sylvanas would have her own annoying adventure, and then, alongside Gyarados' Alliance resistance, ended up besieging the capital city. The group of dwarves serving the Alliance went astray and became lost in the wilderness near the capital city, with some of them being captured by the local kobolds. After a civil war in the Plaguelands after Sylvanas betrayed Gyarados, Sylvanas and her free-willed undead took the capital city, forming the Forsaken. The rebel undead managed to take control of Tirisfal and establish it as their home territory. During that time, remnants of the Knights of the Silver Hand spied on the Forsaken moving into the ruins of Lordaeron. To continue observing them, Alexandros Mogren and his team took the deserted monastery in northern Tirisfal. With the subsequent splintering of the Silver Hand, the fanatical Scarlet Crusade established themselves and took the monastery as their sanctuary. It was here that Balnazar, posing as Saidin Datrohan, later transformed the maddened Thomas Thompson into an undead monstrosity that haunts not only Bry but all of Azeroth during the Hallow's End. Over time, the Crusade took several watchtowers in Tirisfal, posing threats to the Forsaken. Another threat that remained in the land was the Scourge. They led a series of failed assaults against the Scarlet Monasteries and the Crusaders. At some point, a farmer near Brill was stalked by Captain Renée Laurer and her force of Scarlet Crusaders, executing Gillian Grell and Rin Firecaster in the process of cleansing the world of non-humans. Soon after, the relatives of the deceased Barnabas Grell and Reyna Firecaster began searching the woods of Tirisfal, killing the Crusaders they found. René's group had a camp on the outskirts of the western glades. Reyna and Barnabas soon found it and worked their spells and abilities against the enemies. Although they managed to capture the captain, other Crusaders bested them and eventually killed them, but not before Reyna could use her fire magic against them. As soon as they died, Sylvanas and Varimatras discovered the camp as well and led their forces to kill the Crusaders. Later on, the Forsaken would join the Horde and they would battle against Mindless One, Rothhide Nose, and the Scarlet Crusaders to solidify their hold on the area. Various parts of the glades were protected by the Death Guards, and during the invasion of Outland, of course Odin's whole plotting that failed, the gates of Lordaeron were invaded by a group of Burning Legion demons led by High Lord Cruel. During the war against the Lich King, the Alliance and the Horde would form a temporary and, hostile alliance at the siege of Angratar the Wrathgate. A siege that failed not only thanks to the Lich King's prowess, but also thanks to the betrayal of Grand Apothecary Putris, who made sure that this temporary alliance would not last. Because of that, after the betrayal, both the Alliance and the Horde would siege the Undercity from Tirisfal Glades. Warchief Thrall's forces stormed the front gates of the ruins of Lordaeron, while King Varian Rin's army assaulted the sewer entrance to the city. These two armies confronted Putris Varimatras, who was the mastermind behind the betrayal, and finally each other at the Battle of the Undercity. Later on, this would stop and the Undercity would go back into the hands of the Forsaken. Following the defeat of the Lich King, Sylvanas and the Forsaken made a number of improvements to Tirisfal Glades. The town of Brill was upgraded from the original dilapidated human housing to modern Forsaken structures. The bulwark still has Argent Dawn members, but only of the Horde races, and is now accompanied by Undercity forces as well. Dechnio was left mostly the same, but the Valkyrs sworn to Sylvanas are actively rising new undead to bolster their population. However, not every raised undead is willing to join the Forsaken, such as the Rotbrain Undead or Lillian Voss, a former member of the Scarlet Crusade, brought back from death by one of the Varkil in Dechnio, who was eager to get her revenge against the Crusade after her father refused her. The Crusaders also started to reinforce the Scarlet Palisade. Moving now to the Legion's invasion of Azeroth, the Twilight's Hammer Cult, led by Twilight Deacon Farting, made a camp in the Whispering Forest near Tirisfal and breached the Tomb of Tyr. Newly recruited heroes of the Conclave, the Valahar, and the Reformed Silver Hand made their way into the tomb as well, defeated the Madden cultists, and claimed the artifacts as their own. The tomb ultimately ended up collapsing, and so the story of Tyr ends here, and whatever was left of his legacy. Now to talk about the Fourth War. After the burning of Teldrassil, in order to reclaim the ruins of Lordaeron, the Alliance attacked Tirisfal Glades from the northern beach. In their march south, they completely destroyed Brill down to its foundations and knocked down the Zeppelin towers. The area between Brill and the ruins of Lordaeron is covered in blight that was released by Sylvanas herself during the battle for Lordaeron. The rest of Tirisfal remains intact and inhabited. During the Fourth War, the remaining Horde forces in the region appear to be largely in retreat towards neighboring Forsaken lands, with the Bloodfang pack successfully capturing Fenris Isle, from where Horde refugees from Tirisfal are later evacuated across Lordemir Lake. According to Captain Roderick Bristone in Stormgrave Keep, the Alliance fighting to reclaim Stormguard and Arati is largely to ensure that they are able to continue to occupy neighboring Lordaeron. In the aftermath of Sylvanas' defection from the Horde, Lillian Voss arranged a meeting with Kalia Menethil and Derek Proudmoore at the Cowston Estate in Tirisfal Glades, where she apologized for her role in Derek's rebirth and introduced the two to Delarin Summermoon, and the other Night Elven Dark Rangers who had likewise been abandoned by Sylvanas. Kalia and Derek quickly offered to help the undead elves and subsequently left the estate with them, vowing to help them find a future rooted in something beyond hatred and malice. Tirisfal Glades once again belongs to the Forsaken, according to reports of Matthias Shaw made for Anduin after the end of the Fourth War. And finally, to the expansion that nobody really likes, Shadowlands. Sometime after the defeat of Zolvald, the Forsaken took to mustering in the ruins of their former home, as they sought to reclaim as much as they could of the Tirisfal Glades. They had successfully taken Brill and were in process of rebuilding it when Lillian Voss, Kalia Menethil, Belamont, Velanora, and Farnell, influential figures that had risen to prominence among the Forsaken, plotted their next move to secure the ruins of Lordaeron. During the meeting, Voss wanted to directly focus on dealing with the plague in the Undercity. Farnell used an empowered Plague Eater to cleanse the plague. This plan was ultimately successful as the plague manifested as an amalgam and was slain, liberating the city ruins from the plague. And now all the Forsaken have to do is move back into their former home. The city of Lordaeron was home to some species of kobolds, and later on to numerous scourge undead, roamed the city before the Forsaken conquered it. And that includes a unique kind of zombie, the Lordaeron City Mutants. A small group of red dragons tried to help and burn down the blighted farms outside the city gates, but as you can imagine, it didn't help that much. This following part is from the RPG book. The Forsaken partially control Silverpine Forest, but Tirisfal Glades entirely within their grasp. They rule the area beneath Lordaeron, their capital of Undercity. Though the Forsaken claim to be free from the Scourge and willing to work with other races to destroy the Lich King, they seem unhappy if they see living people. Once a human land, Tirisfal warriors served in the Second and Third Wars. The Scourge ravaged the Legion of the Third War and its people fled. After the war, Sylvanas Windrunner bent the Lich King's yoke enough to free herself and many others from his dominance. She termed these free undead under the Forsaken and took the ruins of Lordaeron's capital city as her own. Tirisfal Glades is their unofficial kingdom. The Forsaken attempt to carve out a home and battle against gnolls and worse. Some factions send in agents to sabotage and curtail the Forsaken's efforts, seeing them as no better than the Scourge. While the Forsaken hunting and living in Tirisfal Glades considered Darkhounds only a minor nuisance, occasionally a large enough pack poses a threat to alchemists exploring the woods for components. The orc shaman Hakin was sent to Tirisfal to meet a Forsaken ambassador. He wasn't happy to be here because the spirits of the land, they cried in Lordaeron painfully. When Bran Bronzebeard wandered through Tirisfal Glades, he met several undead members of the cult of the Forgotten Shadows. One of them was a prophet, and the fact that the Forsaken hold the Tirisfal Glades irritates the human nations. The most obvious feature of Tirisfal Glades is the sky, altered by magic, its swirling blue paint that bathes in the land in a cerulean glow, adding to the land's already surreal aspect. Mists constantly waft through the streets, and with the constant twisted sky above, you would not tell the difference between night and day. The undead plague has worked its evil on the trees, though not to the same extent as in the Plaguelands. Instead of becoming giant toadstools, the trees' bark has withered to a sickly violet, and they bleed infected green-yellow sap. Danger lurks everywhere, and death floats beneath the mists. To Tirisfal south is Silverpine Forest. To its east are the Western Plaguelands. Tirisfal Glades borders Lordemere Lake to the southeast, while to the north and west are Lordaeron's oceans. Like Silverpine Forest, Tirisfal Glades is an immense woodland with forbidding trees, threatening shadows, and lurking mists. The animals in the woods are not as vicious as those in Silverpine, however. Their hunting land under the Forsaken's rule may in fact be safer than Silverpine Forest. The Forsaken control Tirisfal Glades and have several settlements throughout the area. This region is a place of mystery and adventure. Before the fall, the citizens of Tirisfal used to enjoy picnics among the hills of Tirisfal during the last days of late autumn. When Aegwyn was little, her mother would take her to the woods of Tirisfal Glade to camping trips. The forest that lay just north of the capital of Lordaeron had always been a place of beauty and of quiet. She was surprised at the animals ranging freely, stunned by the incredible colors of the vegetation, and amazed at how many stars she could see in the night sky away from the torchlights and lanterns of the city. At one point in its history, an ancient plague wiped out thousands of innocents. Later, it was discovered that the deadly agent in the plague was preserved throughout the venom of the night-web spiders from Tirisfal. North of the Scarlet Monastery, there's a forested area, and that area was used as the meeting place for Varimatra's Balnazar and Castilian when Castilian delivered a vial of plague spores. Please do note that at one point I told you that the Tomb of Tyr was shut down and his memories were gone forever, as was his legacy. Well, in fact I lied, and get used to it. Because during Dragonflight, at some point, Travart, a paladin, found the tomb had not fully collapsed. He endeavored instead to remain standing vigil over it as the last remaining Tyr's guard for several years, until at some point the defense system of the tomb locked him out. Then, with the help of a wandering hero and watcher Coronas, they've managed to breach the tomb alongside Travart, and they got to see Tyr's last stand against Zakash the Corruptor. After witnessing Tyr's sacrifice, Travart told Kronos and the wandering hero that his fate had been renewed, so we haven't seen the last of Tyr's tomb, but I do not think others would venture there anytime too soon. Before we wrap this up, I want to talk about the most important site in Tirisfal Glades, or at least the most important nowadays, and that is the Scarlet Monastery. Formerly known as the Old Monastery, is a fortified monastery located in the northeast corner of the blighted Tirisfal Glades, and once upon a time it was a cathedral of the Church of the Holy Light, which was taken over by the Scarlet Crusade after the end of the Third War. Before the Third War, the monastery served as a seminary for paladins in training, and even Alexandros Mogrin himself spent months training and praying here. Following the Third War, the remaining Knights of the Silver Hand in Lordaeron, led by High Lord Alexandros Mogrin, decided to use the old monastery as a defensible forward base in Tirisfal Glades, with the goal of regaining control of the capital city from the Forsaken. When they arrived, they found a jungle troll named Zabrahex, who had made the monastery his home and learned the ways of the light from its books. While Brigitte Abendis and Lord Maxwell Tyrosus argued over the troll's fate, Alexandros decided to spare him after discovering his connection to the light. Later, the Silver Hand splintered into the Scarlet Crusade and the Argent Dawn, with the Crusaders eventually keeping the monastery and renaming the place to the Scarlet Monastery. Later on, Inquisitor Whitemane and Renaud Mogrin relocated here. Not only did it become a home of the Crusade, but it also was a military area as well as a place for the prisoners. When the Crusade learned about a Scourge attack on Heartglen, Renaud commanded Whitemane to gather a squad of soldiers and head to Heartglen. As Whitemane left, Darian Mogrin, guided by the voice of the Ashbringer, arrived to the monastery, where the voice manifested into the spirit of Alexandros, who killed Renaud for his betrayal in the monastery's chapel. After the battle at Light's Hope Chapel, there was a meeting between Castilian, Balnazar, and Varimatas, of course, as I've mentioned, taking place north of the monastery. At some point after the formation of the Scarlet Crusade, the monastery was attacked by the Scourge 3 times in the Summertide Assault. Several Forsaken were captured and brought to the monastery, being interrogated by Hablin. During one night of torture, anger overwhelmed him, and, for only a brief instant, his hold over the light's wrath slipped. An explosion rocked the torture chamber and engulfed Hablin in holy fire. It is said he died a slow death, his howls of agony ringing throughout the Scarlet Monastery for days on end. And of course, during Hallow's End, in the year 24, the Hellas Horseman was created in the monastery by Balnazar using fell energies over the body of Thomas Thompson. And that covers it. Sure, we can talk about the Scarlet Crusade and the monastery at length, but that's not why we are here. No, we are here to talk about Tirisfal Glades, and as impressive and filled with mystique and magic as the zone is, it has been the site of some terrible happenings. Nevertheless, if you've reached it this far and are enjoying this, please consider to like, comment and subscribe to help the channel grow. Thank you.
In the heart of the Forsaken's domain, Tirisfal Glades whispers secrets to those who dare to listen, ready to uncover them. Tirisfal Glades, where the air is thick with foreboding, and the trees seem to whisper old, forgotten tales. A land steeped in dark history, each corner holds a story waiting to be unearthed. From the eerie tranquility of Deathnell to the chilling ruins of Brill, this forsaken territory offers more than just spooky scenery. Listen closely, and you might hear the echoes of lost souls or catch a glimpse of the shadowy figures that roam the misty woods. Ever wondered about the cryptic symbols etched into the stones or the abandoned farms that seem frozen in time? These are not just remnants of a bygone era, but pieces of a puzzle that reveal the deeper lore of Azeroth. So next time you wander through Tirisfal Glades, remember every shadow hides a secret, and every secret is a story waiting to be told. Are you brave enough to discover them all?